Hold up.
Hey everybody, I am so glad to be back. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me and see me okay. I am a little technically challenged when it comes to Zoom. So I just want to make sure. Last time we did this call, I had all this great stuff in the first 15 minutes of my presentation, and then I realized nobody could hear me. So if you can hear me, can you just give me a thumbs up so I know that you see me and hear me? Yes. Okay, fantastic. I'm a little paranoid about it. So that's wonderful. Great. So I'm going to give everyone just a second to hop on. I'm going to get the chat up. I'll definitely answer questions and take a look at what's going on in the chat. And if you want to be unmuted and ask me something at a good breaking point or stopping point, that's wonderful. So just as a recap, last time we got together, we talked about the power of cold pitching. So we talked about, pitching from that consumer standpoint, reaching out, in a way with your cold emails that really gets a company to say, hey, they know who I'm about, they know what we're about, they already use our product, or they're interested in using our product or service. Or even if you're pitching to somebody across the country or across the world where it doesn't make sense that you can use their product, that you have an affinity for what they do. The consumer-based pitch is such a powerful way of breaking the ice, because it's not cold then, is it? It's not cold if you have familiarity. It's not cold if you say, hey, I really admire what you're doing. And it's much more than just popping on the website or using a lead gen tool that says, hey, this lead is qualified and you should send them an email. That is this much of the process. And I have a couple really fun stories that have recently happened that I want to share with you. So today for part 2, we're going to be talking about mastering the follow-up and nurturing the pipeline. And those two things are like parallel train tracks. So they are one and the same, but yet they are also very, very different. A lot of times people send cold pitches, and I recommend that you send 100 cold pitches at least a month if you're trying to build your client roster. So between 25 to 30 a week really gets that ball moving as you're learning sales mastery, as you're learning, how to build an effective cold pitch. But the follow-up process is 90% of if you will close. So I want you to think about cold pitching as basketball. If you can get a 3-point shot in, that is amazing, right? You can win the game right at the buzzer. But that's not how most games are won. And the same is true for pitching. The same is true for following up. So as I've been teaching following up and nurturing, I realized that the difference was that most freelancers and most agency owners and people that use this type of lead gen, and it's very effective. It's really one of the only lead gen methods that I use, with the exception of keeping up with my LinkedIn. I've done this, for years, so it is really effective. But you can't use following up. It can't just be something you're ticking off a box, and that's one of the reasons why I personally have never really used any automated systems, because I found that when I was able to at least spend a little more time, be a little bit more personal, show that every time I reach out that I have skin in the game. It's not just okay, I reached out, this is my first follow-up, this is my second follow-up, this is my third follow-up, that my results were much, much better and then the number of things that I had to send out, the number of cold emails, the number of follow-ups got to decrease month after month until it became just, that it became more about maintenance. So consistency is important, but the magic is in the nurturing. Not just saying, hey, I've got an offer. Hey, I've got an offer. Hey, I've got an offer. If you keep coming to them and you say, hey, I've got an offer. Hey, I've got an offer. Hey, I've got an offer. You obviously want to tell people when you're following up what the benefit of getting on the phone with you is. But be careful that that's not the only note, that's not your only move on the dance floor, because that gets old and people will say, okay, yeah, I heard that, whatever, but it still looks like you have more to gain than they do by getting you on the phone, by getting them on the phone. When you are asking a cold lead for time, you are asking them for something quite large. You're not just asking them to read an unsolicited email, but now you're asking them to get on the phone. And so you have to give them something that makes it worth their time, something that shows that you are equally as invested, which is why maybe you aren't going to hear back from the first follow-up, the second follow-up, the third follow-up. But make no mistake about it, you guys, they are listening to you. Last time we talked, and I briefly talked about follow-ups, I told you that following up was really the art of talking to oneself. And it is in the sense that they're listening, they're paying attention. So I want to give you this example because this is something that when I'm working with people too, I'll work with people who are new to cold pitching, and they will be so excited, right? They're like, I hit my 100 pitches, I did my follow-ups, I'm really antsy, I need to close a client. And here's what I want to tell you. Every person that you put into your pipeline is a success, whether it has resulted in a sale right now or not. Because you are doing two things. Remember I said there's two parallel train tracks happening. You are doing two things at once. You are trying to close sales. You are trying to win somebody's business, but you are also putting as many people, as many companies, as many qualified leads into your pipeline as possible, because that is what gives your business the longevity for not just this year, not next year, we're talking for decades. For example, I've been in business 11 years. So my pipeline is large. If I wanted to just spend today reaching out to people that I spoke to last year, I could do that and close business from that. So it's really important that if you're just starting out in this process, that you realize that what you're building today isn't just about the sale you're going to make today. It's exactly, Jackie, it's about the seeds that you're planting and the relationships that you're forming, whether they speak to you or not. So I want to give you this interesting story. So I had and I use this term really lightly. I don't like ghost on a proposal. I don't like it because unless they have a shotgun out telling me to get off their lawn, I think there's always a chance because I'm always going to be interested in maintaining that relationship. So there was a company that my business partner and we had a $10,000 proposal. It was a $10,000 monthly retainer. And he was really cool. He was a diamond guy in the Diamond District, needed some content marketing. And he was honest with me that he was very gun shy about marketers. So we got to the proposal stage, had a great call, and he, quote unquote, for the lack of a better term, ghosted me pretty hard. So I followed up with him in November, followed up with him in December, January, February. Springtime, I moved him to more of like a back burner follow-up just occasionally. And to be honest, I wasn't really that diligent because we had other things going on and whatever. So yesterday, I was poking around on Facebook and I saw that he's running Facebook ads. And this had to be the shortest, simplest, and it wasn't, I guess you could say it was follow-up, but really it was nurturing. Really it was saying, hello, I feel like I've put something into this relationship. So the subject of the email was simple. Saw your Facebook ad, smiley face. And then I just said, hey, I saw your ad, really great work. And I talked about a mutual connection that we knew, a company that we're both aware of. I said, I'm doing some work for Rare Carrot right now. It's going well. What are you guys up to over at, this company? And he wrote back, this is someone I couldn't get a hold of from November. No pressure, wrote back 2 minutes later. It's so great to reconnect. So happy that you're doing that. Here's what we're working on. Let's talk. If you're starting this process, you don't have the pipeline yet from 6 months ago and all the people that looked hopeless and looked like they ghosted on you. You don't have that yet to go back to. You can't say on a Wednesday, well, I'm just going to go through my pipeline and see who I want to get reconnected with, or see a Facebook ad and say hello. But the further you go in this process, the more you separate in your head. You can't judge the success of your pipeline based on what you're currently closing, because you will get better at sales mastery. You will get better at genuinely following up. And I have some really great tips for you on following up and nurturing that pipeline so that you can stay in a connected, genuine place. The sales mastery stuff will come. None of us come screaming out of the womb like Grant Cardone, it takes practice. It takes work. But here's what I know about all of you guys. Nurturing, regardless if you are an expert salesperson right now, or you're new to the process, or you're gun shy, you all can nurture, because you all can connect with something genuine about the people that you're reaching out to. And so if you start measuring your success, not based on what you're closing, especially not right out of the gate, because you guys are going to test 50 pitches at a time, and then you're going to say, that didn't work so well, and you're going to make changes. Don't judge your sales process especially right out of the gate based on your closing rates, because it's going to change. That is going to change. But what will not change is your ability to connect. So for another example, there was a connection that I had that we talked about working together, kind of fell off the map. Last time I reached out, I knew that he was going to have a baby, or his wife was going to have a baby. So I just said one-liner, hey, where's my baby pics? And it started the conversation going again. Because it wasn't like, hey, I've got something you need to see. It was really no pressure. Think about when you are being sold something. Think about how many times that you will buy if you feel like you are if you are actually connected. And the truth is, your ability to perform a premium service for somebody is related to your ability to truly connect with them. Because as you guys know, I mean, you're social media managers, I do influencer outreach and content. If you can't connect with the message, if you can't connect with the person, then you can't do your job. So it starts with your ability to nurture. So, hey, where's my baby pics? So you have to keep talking to them like you've already established the relationship and not get freaked out if they're not talking back to you. Their response is irrelevant. And I want you to remember this when you get responses from cold pitches. I want you to remember this when you get responses from your follow-ups. What they say to you is irrelevant to what you will do next. You have a set of standards that you're going to hold to, regardless if they send you to the marketing manager, regardless if they say follow up in 3 months, regardless if they say, no, I'm not interested right now, regardless if they say nothing. You have a set of standards that you hold yourself to when you're nurturing your prospects that have nothing to do, because that's one of the most common questions that I'll get. Someone will come to me and they'll say, okay, so they told me they're going to send me to the marketing manager and this and that, and they have all of these things that they want to talk about at a later date. It doesn't dissuade you from your very next step. What they say doesn't matter. They could send you to the president. It doesn't matter. The way you nurture them stays the same. So I think it boosts morale too when you're able to really understand the difference between your success with sales and your success with a pipeline. Because then you can start getting really excited, like, hey, I've got 300 people in my pipeline. I have 400 businesses in my pipeline. I have 500 businesses in my pipeline. And then you're not measuring your success on who wrote back, who closed. This is absolutely a marathon. And I want to stress that you will have those wins. As you get better and as the pitch gets stronger and by the sheer force of numbers, you will have those wins where you have 2 people that close from 120 pitches when you're starting out. But that is nothing compared to what and the amount of money you are talking about building from a pipeline. When you're talking about getting into the $500,000 range, when you're talking getting into the 7-figure range, it is not who can you just close quickly. It is how big, how nurtured, how valued is that network. And so that is really the difference. Following up is simply, you guys get them too. You get the automated follow-ups that come to your email, which is like, hey, Jenny, just checking back in. Hey, Jenny, this is your last chance to get in touch with me. Well, Jenny, guess you don't want to hear from me anymore. And how many times do you look at those and think, you have sent that to 400 people? I would much rather I have targeted numbers, obviously 100 plus the follow-ups that go out per month. But I would much rather you slow down and pick who you feel connected with. Until you can pick up speed and hit those numbers, I am a really big believer in intuitive pitching. Some of my favorite clients that I have ever landed, my business partner and I have this thing that we call stop, drop, and pitch. So yes, you have, I'll give you an example. On Mondays, I like to use Mondays as my research day. So because it is very difficult to try to pitch and research simultaneously. That is how you end up spending 9 hours on 5 pitches and you feel like you got hit by a bulldozer. So that is not what I recommend. So what I like to do is I like to take Mondays, I like to research, make sure all the leads are qualified, 25 companies that I'm going to use a similar pitch template for. And I always write, because it is a consumer-based pitch, so I always write a note to myself. What is my point of connection? Why am I reaching out to them? If you cannot think of a reason of why you're reaching out to them other than you want to hit your first 10K month, you must go back to the drawing board because it will not connect with them. So I put that on my research. I put that on my notes. So I have what I'm going to pitch throughout the week as just, the cog in my wheel, so to speak. But my favorite pitches are the ones, because my brain never turns off, and this is a muscle. I am constantly looking for people that I can help, constantly looking for people who would benefit from influencer outreach, or in your case, social media, and you never turn it off. So some of my favorite pitches are the ones that actually required the least amount of effort, because I was truly the most excited about them. So my business partner, she and I will be out and about. She's also my best friend, and I'm extremely lucky in that sense. We'll be out, and let's say we're at the mall and we discover a new product, or we're out at a new restaurant and we're really excited about the service, or we've been introduced to something. She will look at me and she'll be like, stop, drop, and pitch. And so literally from our iPhones, from the table, from wherever we're at, from the mall, wherever, we will send an in-the-moment, enthusiastic note that says, hey, I am literally holding your product right now, or I am in your store right now, or I am eating your food right now, and I had to reach out to you because more people have to know about this. That kind of enthusiasm, that kind of just authenticity, that is what really gets people's attention. And then from there, you can use those templates for hitting your numbers and other, and the other pitches that must go out in order for you to fill that pipeline. But there is nothing that replaces that intuitive pitch. And it's really funny because you will see that people respond to that. They respond quickly. And that is how you can get some of those quick wins while you're first learning how to pitch, while you're first learning what gets their attention. So if you are struggling to hit numbers right now, and you have a template and you're like, I'm going to shoot out 300 of these this month, I'm going to get out 60 a day, whatever your thing is, I want you to stop. I want you to pull back, because you may as well take that pitch, fold it into a tiny little paper airplane, and send it across your backyard, because nobody is going to open that. You're better off slowing down, stepping back. Who excites you? Who are you dying to get your hands on so that you could help more people learn about them? And if that means that only 3 pitches go out that day, or 2 pitches go out that day, but you're bouncing off the walls excited, that you know in your bones that if you got a hold of their Facebook, or you got a hold of their ads manager, you got a hold of their, I'm not a social media person. So whatever you do to make people, find out about the companies you love, whatever that is, if you know that just from sheer enthusiasm alone, not even counting all of the amazing skills that you've learned, that you could really put them on the map, that means so much more than a dry template that you're sending out because you are frantic to hit your numbers. Speed will come. Speed always comes. Now, at the place of where I'm at in my career, I can sit down and write 5 or 6 pitches that I'm really, really happy about, that have been personalized, basic template, but personalized for the company and what I'm excited about, over coffee in the morning. An hour of coffee, meditation, and pitching, and then I can move into client work. Speed comes. But it's not worth sacrificing the quality, the enthusiasm, and the intuitive, and when you get those ideas of who to pitch, I can't tell you how many times it hit me like a strike of lightning. And those were the people that stayed on retainer for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And it's really exciting. And I also think when you're first learning this process, it's really important to embody, because you never forget it. And it also gives you those first wins while you're mastering the sales process. So let's talk about things that you can offer people in your follow-ups. And there are a million different things that you can offer when you're following up, because remember that the goal is to give. And it doesn't always have to be, what stat do I tell them now? Because when I tell people to follow up the first time to a cold pitch, the first 1 or 2 follow-ups, you do want to remind them of the benefit that you included in your initial cold pitch. And a lot of people who are new to the cold sales process, they get really gun shy about having to say, I'll use blogging as an example, that blogging drives 4 times the amount of leads to your website. They get really gun shy about saying stats like that. Here's what I want to tell you. It is important, and it's also your responsibility to give CEOs who are reading your cold email an idea of what kind of momentum they can get from the craft that you offer. I assure you, and I would bet the farm on it, they don't know otherwise. You have to understand the difference between going in there and saying, I promise you that I'm going to, regardless of what's going on behind the curtain at your company, that I'm going to for sure drive this amount of leads for you, and telling them what's possible if all of the boxes are checked. Part of the reason why social media managers are routinely underpaid, why copywriters are routinely underpaid, why people accept low rates is because they haven't taken the time from a bird's eye view to simply educate a potential client, to simply say, here is the benefit in investing. And I tell, when I get on a phone with a client after a pitch or a follow-up, a potential client, I let them know, if your business is bleeding money, if you have a gaping financial wound, this is not, this is not ER. I am not a trauma surgeon. But if you are looking to play a long-term chess game and see these results, absolutely. There are a lot of people who are very gun shy about saying, and HubSpot is one of my you guys probably all use HubSpot stats, but HubSpot puts out a marketing report every quarter that is bar none with stats to how are case studies performing, how's social media performing, how's influencer outreach performing. And if you don't educate those CEOs on what exactly is possible and why it's worth the investment, they will not know. So if you're gun shy to say, hey, this is what's possible, and you have to say it up front and center, I'm reaching out to you. I am reaching out to you because as a social media, as a Facebook ads expert or as a social media manager, you can have 64% more leads, but I don't know the stats because I don't do it. But you see the point and you say that up front, and that's what catches their attention. Now, in the 2 subsequent follow-ups that come after that initial cold pitch, by all means, remind them of the benefit. So don't just say, hey, following up on the email I sent you about social media management. What does that mean? It means nothing. But hey, following up about how we can use Facebook and Instagram to drive 64% more leads to your website, that reminds them of what you're talking about. Now, where freelancers get into trouble is when they get through follow-up 2, follow-up 1, follow-up 2, they've reminded them of the benefits, maybe they've switched up the stats, and now they're like, I have no idea what to say. No idea. I have no idea how to follow up. I've already told you about the benefits, but they're still listening. They're still listening for what you're going to say next. And this is where you can actually start to build a relationship with them. This is where you can actually start to nurture. So if you haven't set Google alerts for the companies that you've pitched, do it. If you are not currently following them on social, do it. If you're currently not signed up for their email list, I have a Hotmail account that's just signed up to everybody that I practically have ever pitched. Do it. Have things to talk about with them. If they've won an award, compliment them. If you saw a Facebook ad, like we mentioned before, say hello. And then as you start to and if they give you anything, a breadcrumb, anything, make it a conversation. So I had a lead that was like, hey, I'll talk to you after Book Expo. Well, then you check in. How was Book Expo? I saw all your cool pictures on Instagram. How do I get one of those grand prizes? Talk to them when you talk to them, talk beyond the sale. Get your head out of, do I close them? Do I close them? Do I close them? How do I close them? Because what you're doing in the process is you are no longer cold. Even if they've never said anything to you, you have become a fixture in their inbox. You've become the fixture of, oh, that's Victoria, that's Jackie, that's whatever. They've maybe never had a conversation with you. But they know you. They know what you're about. They know you have something to offer. Think about when you open Rachel's emails, for example. You know that there's going to be something, even if you've never replied to one, even if you weren't sitting here right now and had never bought SMU. You open them. You were having, as far as you're concerned, you were having a conversation with Rachel. You may not have been replying. And that is the feeling that you want to instill with your leads. Yes, it's different than having an email list that you can but that's okay. Because this is highly, highly personal. And the better you get at reaching out and saying, hey, where are my baby pics? Hey, saw the Facebook ad. Hey, this, hey, that. How's it going? And then they start coming around. Now, let's say you've been doing that. It is all about mixing it up. So if you're not going to apply pressure and you're just going to check in and see how they're doing, that is one way to talk to them. You can offer the benefits. That is another way. Now, let's say the conversation is still one-sided. That's okay, because timing is everything. I have a client that Voxered me yesterday that just, because she was somebody who was very anxious. I've been pitching. And she wrote to me yesterday. She was like, this company I pitched a year ago. I have been sending them follow-ups. They have been ignoring me. And now it's like, hey, what do you offer? We need case studies. And that is the power of timing. As long as you are, because there's going to be two ways this is going to go. You're going to persuade a company on your particular services and what you offer and why it's beneficial, and they'll bite. Or they will modify it in their head for what they want, and they will reach out to you when those two worlds collide, when they can get the best of what you do with their own agenda. A lot of times the success in building your pipeline, nurturing them, is simply going with their flow, not pushing your agenda. So if you have a package, for example, that's like, I have, this is my $5,000 package. This is what it includes. Be willing to play ball. Be willing to step outside of what that package is and what it has to have and how you and how you put it together. Because nothing will separate you and the conversation from your pipeline than you pushing an agenda for the sake of this is how it is in your head. Being flexible to what they want and listening to what they want. Taking a look at what are they, and they don't even have to tell you what they want for you to listen. So, for example, for influencer outreach, when I'm trying to figure out, can I really move a needle for a company? I will look to see what they have done. I will email them stuff right out of the bat. Like, hey, I never criticize. Don't criticize. If you're somebody who's got to point out typos, you've got to put that to bed. That does not help you close clients. So you gotta get off the typo train. But I'll take a look at what they're doing and I'll send them an email. It says, hey, I really love this last campaign that you ran. I've been a big fan of your brand. As you know, I'm a really big fan of this last campaign that you ran with, X and Y blogger and company. You could totally compound your results on that if you made these two tweaks, and I give them the tweaks. Information is free, guys. If they really wanted the tweaks, they could just Google it themselves, right? There are courses, there's Google, there are people, so you can pick people's brains all day long. Information is the cheapest commodity on the world. Implementation is another story. And so one thing that you don't want to do in your nurturing and in your following up is you don't want to act like you're protecting the golden egg. Okay? Nothing that you know is the golden egg. Nothing. Tell them. And I'll be honest with you, people will say to me, because I don't know if you guys noticed, in Facebook groups, and there was this thing for a while where it was don't let people pick your brain, and obviously you don't have all day to sit with somebody for an hour and just talk. And it's a time constraint, but let your prospects pick your brain. It costs you nothing. To spend 5 minutes answering their question. It costs you nothing to send them some tips. It costs you nothing to show that you're invested before they are. It costs you nothing. And I promise you that when the time comes where they're ready for implementation, whether that's next week, whether that's 6 months from now, whether that's a year from now, you will be the expert they trust. Because nurturing is not just about what is the benefit of the thing that you offer. Nobody cares that much. I mean, they should. They should care that much, but they don't. Do they trust you? Do you inspire them? Do you make them think things are possible? Do they trust you to take whatever you've inspired them about and get the job done? Do they want to take a risk with you? If you guys went to my LinkedIn right now, I have, in my summary, I'm very bold and I'm very clear that I'm going to take risks. If we fail, it is going to be spectacular and costly. But if we win, and we will win, there will be times to win, but you don't get that without failures. It will be spectacular and costly. You will make money. And so when they trust you and they're inspired by you and you can put that essence in your follow-ups, in your nurturing, get out of the sale, get out what it means for your bottom line, then you start closing. And then you start closing at different rates. That is the power of the pipeline, because you can't push somebody. One question that I get a lot is, how do I make them do this? You're not making anybody do anything. And that's a lesson you got to learn. Like, the earlier you learn that lesson, that you can't make anyone do anything, the easier life is going to be. You can persuade them. You can give them information. You can be a fixture. You can be a support. So for example, here's one of my favorites. How many of you guys have pitched or talked to somebody who said, oh, I hired an agency for this? You guys gotten that one? Yeah, it's one of my favorite ones. So how do I follow up with CEOs who say, oh, I hired an agency? I become their third-party confidant. I become their private secretary in the world of the Royals, right? Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. Let me know if you want to bounce ideas off of somebody who's not part of the project, if you want a second opinion, if you want expert advice from someone who can truly be unbiased. I've done this a long time. And before you make decisions, if you just want to bounce an idea off of someone, let me know. They love that. Now you are an expert, that you do have skin in the game. You're building something, but they trust you. They're not paying you. You've offered to be more invested than they are first. And I can't tell you how many times a CEO who's worked with an agency, and you guys know this is true, especially with big agencies. Boutique agencies are awesome, but big agencies have the struggle of overhead and too many projects and too little creativity to go around. And the client suffers. And they're paying 40, 50 grand a month for their stuff. So what you end up having are CEOs that don't know where to turn. They don't have time to learn it themselves. They don't have the in-house team to do it. And they feel like because one of the things that big agencies will do, and I'm not saying it's malicious, but they're overwhelmed. And so they will say, like, you didn't get us these stats. You didn't update your website. You didn't do this and this. And a lot of times CEOs feel blamed, and they don't feel like they have a confidant. And this has been a running theme that I have discovered with CEOs over the last 11 years. So what do? They turn to a confidant that can truly give them an unbiased opinion. If the agency is doing something great, say it, and then give them something else they can add to it. If the agency is doing something that is not beneficial to them, don't come right out with guns blazing, but say, I would do it this way. This is where I've had success. Try it this way. And now you've become somebody that has guided them through something that is a very stressful process for a lot of CEOs. And when it comes time for them to evaluate where they want their social media marketing to go next, or their content marketing to go next, you are the first person that they think of, because who else do they trust? So be okay being that person. Don't be penny wise and a pound foolish. Don't be, well, I've offered them they don't know you from Adam. So yeah, you've offered them a phone call. You've offered them, saying, hey, sure, I want to talk to you about how I can help you. And they know that's a sales pitch. But what else can you put? What else can you give them? So one thing that I like to include in my follow-ups, and I do, my nurturing process is it's also very intuitive. If I want to just say hello, I just say hello, and then I say hello to everybody. Or if I see something that sparks my interest and I want to share it with them, I share it with them. If I see a link that they would like, I send it. But I also bring it back to how I can help their business. So one thing that I like to do is I like to offer people a strategy, a free strategy. You don't have to work with me. I don't actually care if you work with me or not, but this will help you. So I will send a follow-up that lets them know that I have a nice 3 or 4 point strategy related to the specific strategy for their business, related to what related to what it is that I'm trying to get them to do, whether it's content marketing, influencer marketing, whatever. And let them know, if you never work with me, it doesn't matter. You can take this strategy and run. I just want you to have it because it's worked. And this seems to really spark people's interest because it's worked for companies with similar audiences. And I think it could be equally, if not more, successful for you. And I mean it. I'm not just blowing smoke. Like, I mean it. Like, these are well qualified leads. These are targeted people, and people will respond. Another type of follow-up that I've had a lot of success with, as well as the cold pitch, I didn't get a chance to share with you guys last time, is be open to talking on the weekends. It's always the people who struggle with boundaries that put their boundaries then down in the wrong places. So there's nothing inherently wrong with taking a call with a CEO on a Saturday. There's nothing inherently wrong if somebody needs you to, to speak to them on Saturday, or if that's the best time or after. It's all depending on how well do you trust your own boundaries. So I'll give you an example. No, I do not typically talk to my clients past working hours. They respect my boundaries because I respect my own. But if they need me, if something comes up, one time I had this is real funny. So I do influencer marketing for like some MLM companies who are trying to do more modern forms of marketing. And one time there was a consultant who was just running amok, just with the influencers, like spamming. So like the influencers were running a giveaway in a series, and this consultant was trying to sell everybody who was commenting. So as social media people, you know how horrible that is. And so the vice president, they know that texting was not something that texting is not a service of mine that I offer with my clients. But the vice president was having a nuclear meltdown when she saw this. And so she texted me. It was after hours. I was getting my nails done. Of course I jumped in and helped. Of course, like that wouldn't even be a question. So thinking about how you think about your boundaries differently is really helpful, because some people think like, I will not, no matter what, talk to somebody on the weekends. I will not, no matter what, talk to someone after 6 p.m. And think about where you're coming from when you think that. So here's why I say that. The weekend pitch and the weekend follow-up are powerful, especially since I recommend pitching the CEO of anybody else. Marketing manager, you're not going to get anywhere with. VP of marketing, you're not going to get anywhere with. You want to talk to the renegade. You want to talk to the visionary. You want to talk to the decision maker who's more interested in raising sales, their larger vision for the brand, than keeping someone's job safe. And it's just the way it is. And we've all had regular jobs. So we know that you get on a flow and you like things to be where they are and it feels safe and secure. And a marketing manager has their own, agenda. A CEO doesn't have time to talk to you all the time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But after he or she makes pancakes for her kids on Saturday morning, yeah. After, they get home from maybe church and a barbecue on Sunday, yeah, they have time. When they're finally catching up with their emails, I've had so many great conversations with CEOs and clients that turned into clients on Sunday morning. After, their kids were doing their thing, they had caught up with emails, and we had great, relaxed conversations, and they were really listening to me. So there's 2 ways that you can deploy this strategy. The first way to deploy this strategy is you can pitch. So you will send cold pitches on Friday and Saturday early. So like send them Friday and send them early Saturday, letting them know that you have some time over the weekend. You've been wanting to get in touch with them. You have a great strategy. Offer the strategy right out of the gate. You have a great 3 to 4 point strategy that it's worked with other companies that are similar that you've worked with. You just want them to have it because you're a big fan of the brand. Do they have any time to chat for 15, 20 minutes over the weekend? Simple. I mean, this pitch is this big. That is highly effective in getting a CEO on the phone. Yeah, I'm available Sunday morning. Yeah, I'm available Saturday. Now you can use the same strategy for follow-up. So if you have not yet offered this lead a strategy, or you're offering a different strategy, or you've never reached out to them on the weekends and you've not had success during the weekday, send a follow-up in the same vein on Friday, letting them know that you have time over the weekend. You've got this great strategy for them. You've been thinking a lot and following. I always tell them, I'm following what you're doing. I've got some great ideas, and I put together a strategy that I think would really maximize what you're working on. And let them know. Now, if you do this Friday and early Saturday, then you have your schedule open to speak with them anytime Saturday evening, and Sunday before people get into the chaos of Monday. And it's really, really effective. Now, you do not have to write a new strategy for every time. So as you know, in your craft, there are best practice things that most companies that you talk to are not doing. And it's mind-blowing, right? When you look at stuff and you're like, okay, take whatever that is that's easily modifiable for your different prospects take a great 3 to 4 point best practice strategy that most of your prospects are not doing, that can be easily modified. We're talking about a 10-minute modification before you go into a call with a CEO, and use that as your base strategy. So like for influencer outreach, I can think of 4 things off the top of my head that most people who have tried it and failed at it did not do. And most people, and social is a lot like this too. There are just things that people do that they fail at, and then they think it doesn't work. And so take whatever those are for social media, create a 4-point strategy that's simple, that's easily digestible, that they can see the inherent value in right away, and present that. And then this way you can, just with simple modifications, you can present it over and over again to, whoever you're speaking with. But try the weekend pitch, try the weekend follow-up. It's powerful. People have time to breathe. They're grateful for it. Because once you get into Monday, which is why I use Monday as a research day too, because how many cold pitches have you really heard back from on a Monday? People, do you respond to your emails on a Monday? I don't. And I have the flexibility to respond to my emails whenever I want. And these are people who are working in a corporate setting or in-house or at an office, and I still am like, oh, Monday, I guess that's a mindset issue. But still, the point is, I don't respond to my emails on Monday. So I'm pretty sure that the CEO of Target, if I don't have time, I'm sure the CEO of Target does not have time to respond to his emails on Monday. Have any of you guys tried a weekend pitch before? I'd be really curious if you've tried weekend. Oh, awesome. And then did you have success with it, or did you just do it once or? Once. Okay, cool. Do you guys have any questions so far? I want to make sure that Jackie works Sundays here and there. Yeah, Sundays are a great way to catch up with stuff. Doug said, I see Rachel doing this regularly, honest, helpful nurture. It is really the best thing you can do. And I think that the point really too is to understand, and I know I've made this point a few times, but I think it's just so important to understand that just because you are new to sales mastery, and just because you are working on your conversion rates, and just because you've not closed all of those people that have come in yet, or that you've pitched yet, does not mean that you have been unsuccessful with your pipeline. That is really important. Okay, so Lindy Stacy said, I haven't pitched weekends, but I'm generally working, especially on Sundays, as I'm home alone. Yeah, I would be really excited to hear about if you committed to it. And it's one of those things that it's not something that you do one weekend and then you just forget about. It really, like everything, the magic is the consistency and making it a part of your practice, because it's also its own kind of pitch. It's also its own kind of follow-up, which means it takes its own time. It takes its own time to master. Now, something else that I like to offer clients or potential clients who have not responded, or they ghosted on a proposal, or they've not responded to my follow-ups, they know what I'm about, maybe I've had a conversation with them, is I like to offer them just a strategy plus a meeting. Strategy plus a meeting. Everyone loves strategy plus a meeting. So for example, we were focused very much on outreach, not content so much, but mostly outreach all of last year. And so everybody that had even shown a shred of interest, just even a shred of interest on what we were offering, I let them know, some space in my schedule has filled up. I really enjoyed our last conversation, whatever that was. I went back to that. And for this month, I'm offering, I have 3 strategy sessions that I'm offering. It's everything that we talked about. It's at and strategy is much lower than implementation, obviously. So it's like, I will give you this full strategy that you could deploy over the next 3 months, plus a 90-minute meeting with me and my team to go over it. And sometimes with my team, sometimes without my team. And it's $1,500. And I have room for about 3 of them. I thought of you, and let me know if this is something that you want. So that is a different kind of follow-up. That is, you are definitely asking them for something. You're asking them for a commit to the sale. But that kind of follow-up works with people who saw maybe your proposal, or saw your rates, or had a conversation with you and worried about budget, or worried about committing to, having you come in and implement for 3, 4, 5 months, whatever, and they want to test drive you. A $1,500 test drive is a great way to move somebody into a retainer. I've sold several of them. and training packages as well. And what always happens is the CEO always comes back around and says, I don't have time for this. My team does not have time for this. Can we move into an implementation structure after this? So this type of follow-up, just coming right out and offering them a sale, is okay. If you've shared value, if you've nurtured them, and if you have something that they genuinely will benefit from that is an automatic. So for the people that I sent this to, I had informed them for a long time the benefit of what I offer. I had given to them already. Don't give this to, if you've not given anything except for the pleasure, the pleasure of the chance to speak with you, don't offer this. But if you've given and you've nurtured and you have expressed value and you've given them a little free 3 or 4 pointer, or you've offered it, then go ahead. Because a lot of times people who are just gun shy about your rates, your proposal, the commitment, a lot of times people are not interested in the benefit of what you offer right off the bat. And that was one of the most mind-blowing discoveries of mine, was that people would rather take a package or an option that actually cost them more money in the long run, that wasn't like the best value, so that they could see if they could trust me, this stranger from the internet. So you have to remember, when you are nurturing your pipeline, you're also trying to feel out what motivates the people in your pipeline. Some are going to be motivated right away to increase their sales. They're going to be real A-type CEOs who are just going to be like, sales, 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 and you're going to have to pull them back. Then there's going to be people who, yeah, they'll get to it. They want to know if they can trust you. And so if you keep hammering, that's why the complexity of nurturing and being a real human and building that relationship is so important. Because if you keep hammering your one move on the dance floor, which is sales and the benefit of it, and they're motivated by trust, you're going to speak past them every single time. And some people, which is why it's very important to qualify your leads, guys, is that even if you are offering the best value, even if you are offering all of the nurturing, even if you are showing them that for $5,000 a month, you could just blow up their social media, if they don't have the money, it doesn't matter. Budget will always be more important than value. And so make sure that you're spending time in your pipeline with people who can actually afford you. So for our clients and our students, like, we always tell them, nothing under $10 million a year revenue. That is like baseline. If you're looking for a nice retainer, $10 million a year is what is going to be able, annual revenue is what's going to be able to sustain that. For outreach, I have found that even 10 million sometimes does not cut it. I have to be up in like the 20, 25 million. If you're looking for, if your services, let's say if you have $10,000 packages a month, you're looking upwards of 25, 50. And remember too, that companies who are making $10 million a year, and a company who's making $100 million a year, and a company who's making $500 million a year, they have different goals. They have different pain points. They're in different parts of their journey. And just as like entrepreneurs, we can really understand that, right? Like when we're first trying to hit our first 3K month versus our first 10K month and 20K month, that's different. What you struggle with is different. Your goals are different. So you speak to companies from where they're at. So think about when you are following up with a company who's a $500 million company. You're not going to talk to them the same way you would talk to somebody who is at $10 million. But the reason I bring up qualifying the leads is because I think that people can't hear it enough, because I think that there's imposter syndrome. And I know this isn't a mindset call, but I think that it's a very real thing that comes up, where you say, okay, I'm going to qualify my leads. I am not going to work with a company that can't afford me. $10 million or up. And then you start seeing the names of who those companies are. And you start getting in your head about, what do I have to offer them? Do they have an in-house team? Yeah, maybe. They'll probably also work with freelancers. You can't, it's not your business to know how they run their business. And next thing you know, you went from being so sure that that's it, you're qualifying your leads and you're not talking to anybody for under $10 million a year. And next thing you know, you are talking to the local business that brings in $2 million a year and wants to pay you $500 a month and a stick of gum to run 6 social platforms. And you wonder how you got there. You have to commit to certain standards for your pipeline to pay off. And if it's imposter syndrome that you are struggling with, if it is something that keeps you from feeling like you can step in, and the names scare you, or the amount of money scare you, or you feel like you don't have what it takes to step into that role, I want you to work on that, because you do. And people get very caught up with, they already have, Target has an in-house team. Target notoriously works with freelancers. But think about how you make decisions that you have no idea. There are many, many companies that have in-house teams and also, supplement their work with freelancers or consultants or both. Why? An in-house employee has a completely different role than a freelancer or a consultant. You're an expert at one thing. An in-house employee has to handle a lot of day-to-day tasks that they need. So they need both, is my point. And yeah, you will run into people that will absolutely tell you, no, I don't work with freelancers. And 6 months later, they change their mind. GoDaddy was a real interesting example of this. They went from all in-house to all agency to all in-house to bringing freelancers, all within like a 2-year span. Companies are constantly fluctuating with how they work with people. But the point is, don't have standards. Be willing to negotiate, obviously. When you're working on your proposals, when you're being generous with your knowledge, all of that is fantastic. But you have to make sure for your pipeline to pay off that they can actually pay you. It's very disappointing to have a pipeline that you've nurtured, that you've worked hard on, that you enjoy, people that you genuinely get to know, people that you genuinely get, as close to as you can via email, I suppose. And then realize that because of your own perception, or because of a block that you had, or because of a way that you looked at things, that they're all making $3 million a year and you can't go anywhere from there. So make a commitment to qualify the leads. You will get to a point, and for some of you, it may feel, and I know everyone's probably just like, some people are, we have a wide range of who's making what and where you're at in your journey. And there may be some of you who can't imagine sitting with a CEO and him saying or her saying, hey, what are your rates? And you say $10,000 a month, and them just nodding. You probably can't imagine that, some of you. But that's the point you get to when you hold your guns. And you have a pipeline that's more apt to deliver those kind of results for you. And all of the work and all of the care that you've put into it, as opposed to a bunch of people who can't afford to pay you and that they don't even care about your value. They don't even care. That's the crazy thing, is if you're talking to someone who can't afford you, think about when you go somewhere and you feel like you can't afford something. And we've all been there where they're like, but this is the best. And it's the best, but I don't have the money for it. Like, that's where your brain goes. We're all working on our money mindset, and that's another story. But that is how they're feeling. Businesses struggle with the same money mindset stuff that entrepreneurs do. So they will think about their budget. They will think about their board. They will think about their investors. They will think about whatever, or how far they've not come. And then you also put them in a position of being uncomfortable. So it's not just for your own, your own good, which is important for your own good, but don't put people in positions that they're uncomfortable either. So talk to people who can truly afford what you offer. Because when you're looking at the grand scale of marketing services, up to $10,000 per month is considered a low-end offer. That is considered something that should not take more than emails and a phone call to close by general marketing standards. The reason it feels sometimes like it's a high-end offer is because you're just simply talking to people who are not qualified. So put the effort into qualifying your leads. Sidestep whatever feelings of imposter or insecurity that you have. Whatever you're feeling is not absolute truth, because this pipeline building is exciting. Nurturing is exciting. Following up is exciting, but you don't deserve to be disappointed at the end of it. I had a client once, and I gave the whole spiel, right? I said the whole thing. And they came back to me and said, I've sent this and I've done this and I've nurtured this, and they're responding, but they won't bite. And I said, because I take that very seriously. And I'm like, I want a list of revenues. And they were like, I was like, no, I need to look at this. Like, give me a list of revenues. There was nothing over 5 million, you guys. Nothing. And it wasn't because they weren't doing the work. is because they were terrified of what somebody at that level why would they need them? So do you guys have any questions about everything? We've covered quite a bit. I'm really passionate about this topic because it's been really successful for me and our gang. And it's been, it's a different way of looking up follow-ups. Oh, one last thing. You're never done following up. That's one thing people ask me all the time. Do I follow up 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times? You are never done until they tell you to get the hell out of your email. You're not done. Because timing is everything. And you don't know. And if they're still listening to you, there's still a reason to reach out. Because I cannot tell you that it is how many times that it is actually the norm to not hear from somebody for a year and all of a sudden they have a ginormo project. I have had CEOs ignore me for a year and a half, and then write me an email with, can you start now? I mean, that's quick, but it happens. So don't check it off a box. It has nothing to do with how many you sent. It is being consistent with them. It is being authentic with them. It is nurturing. It's not asking constantly. It's getting to know them. And it's understanding that there is no there. We aren't getting to, and this was one of my things when I first started my business. So I was so excited just to get there. Like I was like, I'm going to do all this work. I'm going to pitch. I'm going to get my clients and I will be done. And there's no done. You're never done. You get to that point and there's more follow-ups, more pitching, more growth. Now there's teams to hire. There's, because the truth is if it doesn't grow, it dies. And so if you realize that you're never done with the follow-up process, that you're never done building the relationship, then it becomes, you start to go with the grain and with the flow, and it becomes much, much easier than if you're like, well, I sent my 6, I'm done. Because in marketing, they say like 6 to 10 touches and stuff, but that is just, that's just a stat. That's just the standard. There are clients that I've had for years that if I stopped at the 6 to 10 touches, I wouldn't have closed them. They still were learning how to trust me. Okay, so Doug has a good question. He said, so in this day of mastering the funnel, at some point you step out of that model. So I'm probably the outlier here, Doug. So there are certain businesses that I think that the funnel is really important for. So I think that coaching, I think consulting, I think if you have a membership community, I think that if it makes sense to reach a lot of people at once, I believe very much in the personalized follow-up. I'd rather some people fall through the cracks and me not be able to get to everybody, or I have an assistant that helps me as well, than just put everybody into a funnel. Because I have found through the power of truly connecting through intuitive pitching, and if the numbers are overwhelming, taking down that number and really connecting with who I feel inspired to connect with has been far more effective for me financially than when I backed off. And I tried it. I wouldn't say official funnel, but I tried it. I had a project manager and assistant, because my business partner and I were building other things, and we started coaching, we started doing stuff. So I thought I didn't want my follow-ups to fall through the cracks. So I had my project manager and I had our assistant put together a plan of pitching and following up and whatever. Didn't work. It works if they research for me or they get some of that information for me, but I will be really honest. Didn't work. When I stepped in and did less, sent less, nurtured less, but did what I could do and did what I was inspired to do and cherry picked, because this is really about cherry picking who you want on your roster. I love our clients, you guys. I mean, I love them. I get so excited about what they do, and they are truly cherry picked. And if you knew my business partner and me, you would look at our roster of freelance clients and you would be like, they're the perfect blend of these two people. They represent our interests. They represent our passions. And I wouldn't have been able to close them if they had just been shoved in a funnel. I'm not saying that funnels, I love funnels for other models and for other things. And maybe one day I'll crack the code. But anytime I'm disconnected from my leads, if I'm disconnected from my pipeline, I feel disconnected from my business. So I'd rather send 5 or 6 intuitive pitches and really get to know them. And you get faster as you go than just trying to shove everybody into the pipeline. So that's my personal opinion. Other people have very different opinions on that. And I respect that, but just for what's worked for me, that's how I've had to do it. And then and then it works, and then I close, and then I have to send much less than people who are just sending gobs of. I talked to someone yesterday who runs an agency, and they do sales and nurturing and stuff for clients, and he's like, our automated system sends 10,000 emails a day. And I was like, oh my God. But the first thing I think of too is the quality. And as freelancers, we're really, you know, as freelancers, we're really lucky, because when we set our prices right and to where we're really valued for what we do, how many clients does it really take to put us in a position? You don't want to have 15 clients anyway. You know, like when I made my first, you know, 100,000, it was like around $120,000 a year. I had 2 clients, and I pitched from a Hotmail account. There wasn't a fancy system. There wasn't anything automated. And so for the type of business we're in, we don't need all of that, because you're not going to probably want more than that many clients, you know, depending on what your business goals are. Now, if you've got this dream of having this ginormo agency and lots of moving parts, then you reevaluate, of course. But if you're looking at yourself in a small team and maybe 5 clients to run everything, I mean, it doesn't take much more than that to have 20K months. So, you know, it just depends what your goals are. And for me, my success has come from staying connected. Connection is really important. So, do you guys have any other questions for me before I say adieu? I'm so glad I got the chance to come back and hang out with you guys. If you want to hang out with me and my business partner, Alex, she's awesome. She's the mindset half of our team. Our community is the Six Figure Freelancer community on Facebook. You're welcome. You're welcome. Maybe I'll get to come back. I'll have to talk to Rachel and come back and hang out with you guys again. But I'd love to see you guys in the Six Figure Freelancer community. If you have any questions, oh, thank you. I love our group so much. Like it is just my absolute favorite. But if you have any questions or you want to follow up with me or whatever, the best place to get a hold of me would be in that Facebook group. My PMs are a mess. Like I don't even look at my private messages because it's like graveyard. But in the community, both Alex and I are really active. And so we're happy to, and any friend of Rachel's is an automatic friend of ours. We just love her so much. Awesome. You are so welcome. I'm so happy. I will talk to you guys soon and hopefully see you in the Six Figure Freelancer. See you guys.